right, so this is episode 2 of the Pregame Network podcast with your hosts, Dan and Anthony. Just two pals in our never-ending gaming career.
Yeah, and man, we chose quite the interesting time to come back, huh?
Yeah. But you mentioned that you wanted to start with the games that we have been playing most recently. So
Yeah, I
since
figured.
I let us in, you go first, and we'll go back and forth.
Yeah, so I mean, personally, in the last couple of weeks, you know me, I play a lot of fighting games. I've been playing a lot of Street Fighter 6, a lot of Tekken 8, some of the older fighting games. With some of my buddies on PC, with all the different options you have with emulating the old stuff. The only game I've really been playing outside of the usual fighters, it's like you have something on standby, you just put time into.
I have my backlog is fucking massive.
Yeah, plenty of those. But aside from the time sinks like the fighters and the shooters, I've been playing a lot of Persona 3 Reload remake. It's not quite up your alley, I know, but
is that turn-based? Like, what is that exactly?
So Persona as a series is turn-based. It's multiple different flavors over the course of its lifespan. I know you've already tuned out, but I figured I'd explain it.
No. Look, when we sit down to record one of these podcasts, I'm in. I am very present. I did not tune out already, you dick.
He's talking about the turn-based games again. I gotta let's see what's going on my phone. But yeah, it's turn-based.
Just a monotone.
Yeah.
In my head.
Persona 3 was kind of a turning point for the series where it added social elements and building up, how you talk with other characters and whatnot. And it was considered, for better or worse, like where people really started paying attention to the series when it made a lot of those changes. The remake is something people have wanted for a long time because it's one of those games that, after the fact, got expanded editions. Like kind of like a Street Fighter would get like a Super Street Fighter, or like an RTS would get an expansion. So like you had Persona 3 come out, and then a new version came out called Persona 3 FES, and that had like an epilogue, and it rebalanced a lot of things in the game. And then much later, they did a portable version for the PSP. Now the problem is the expanded version FES and the portable version had completely different editions in terms of content, so there was never a definitive edition, and people were saying for years, you got to remake the game, you got to put everything in one package. And they remade the game, and they didn't add any of that content. So it's just a remake of the vanilla version, and they're doing DLC for it. It's a whole fucking kerfuffle, and I'm having fun with it. It's definitely accessible, but my two issues are, one, it's not the definitive experience everybody wanted, and there's also like a lot of weird selective censorship and random changes. Overall, having a lot of fun with it. Very glad I didn't pay for it, given a lot of the changes and a lot of the cuts, because it's on Game Pass. Surprising, since Xbox is kind of like hit or miss with Japan stuff on Game Pass, and all the DLC. This fucking blew my mind. All of the DLC coming, like in this expansion pass, is going to be part of the Game Pass perks. Like, they never put DLC on that. Wow. I was fucking stunned. So that's what I've been doing. What about you?
I have basically been a gamer version of a pinball. I've been bouncing around to so many different things lately. And like I like a new event started in Destiny, but that's neither here nor there because it's not new. It's just like new for like right now. The Guardian games have been going on forever. The only reason, like literally the only reason that I logged in was because they made a hoverboard, and like you can have that instead of your Sparrow. So they made a hoverboard and it's free for everybody. So I logged in to get that, but I didn't like unlock the full version because it's a quest, like every fucking thing in that game.
Yeah.
So they give you like a white version, and then you could ride that around, and then you do a quest, and then they give you the exotic version or the yellow version, and then that's the one that you get to keep. So I got the regular one because I wanted to just see what it was all about, and it's cool. Like, don't get me wrong, it's nothing game changing. It's not going to like bring me back to dive headfirst in for any reason because there's nothing new to really do except for your standard Destiny housekeeping right now. But I logged in just to get that. I'm going to have to do that quest within the next week just to hang on to that item because it is the coolest vehicle that you get to own so far. So like that's neither here nor there. I've been playing a lot of Last Epoch. I'm sure you've heard of this.
I've heard of it in name only. You could give me a bit more details if you want.
So it's a isometric ARPG, very similar in the vein of Diablo. But in the how much time have I put into this already?
Is that
I
the
put
free to
8
play
hours
one?
in. It's not free to play. That's you're thinking of Path of Exile.
Okay.
So Path of Exile is, God, you need like several guide videos and a blueprint and a significant amount of time to like truly understand that game. Whereas Diablo is just the casual version of the ARPG as we know it today.
That hurts to fucking hear because it was.
I know, but you know it's true.
Yeah, it's sad.
Last Epoch is perfect. Last Epoch is perfectly positioned in the middle, and it's $35. So it's like you have Path of Exile, which is free, but the barrier to entry is like unbelievably high. Like you really need to want to sink into a new game to really get into it. Diablo is $70 for something that you could play while stoned or drunk or whatever, and it's really you're not really gonna need anything. Like there's not much thought to be put in it as far as ARPGs go. Last Epoch is perfectly positioned in the center because you have the really deep builds, and again, I've only put 8 hours into it, but you have the deep builds, but it does come across as like easy to get into. But I think for me personally, where it stands apart from every other ARPG right now, that I've played, are the skills. Like there's a crazy amount of skills in the game per class, and you have to level them up individually, and then the more you level them up, you can dump skill points into these different augments of these individual skills that just radically change the behavior of the skills, and then they all will work together, and you can make a build, blah blah. But I've been having a lot of fun with it. I always play a rogue in these games. I made a necromancer or an acolyte, and so each class has 3 different masteries that you can specialize into once you progress the story enough for that character. And you have 5 classes, I think. So you have a total of 15 masteries, if my math is right. But they all play very differently from one another. So I've been putting a lot of time into that, not that much, but I've been putting a respectable amount of time into that, given the confines of my free time now.
Okay.
And it's been a lot of fun. Like I actually like it. I like it a lot.
That's good.
And it's not like I can't understand this like Path of Exile. It's also not like just turn your brain off like Diablo has become.
It hurts every time you go back to kick Diablo while it's down. Like, I was never a huge Diablo guy. It's like I loved 2 and I like 1, but it's like to just everything I had warned about from like Diablo 3 when it came out up until Diablo 4's beta, and then everybody playing it and forgetting it. I've just been watching it, and it kills me because every time I would say like, hey, it's very oversimplified, and have you or Eric blow me off and just go, oh, but I'm playing it, and then it's a forgettable game that you guys don't play anymore, and it's sitting there, you're just like, oh yeah, this icky thing. It's what you play if you want to just shut your brain off, and I'm just like, that's like a legacy name that could have been so much better.
This is what Blizzard does now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, completely fair. Blizzard's like all shit now, so it's not like you filthy casuals are the only issue. Blizzard has its own issues going on. So
I've been playing that when I can, and I've been having my fun with it. The skills are easily the number one thing that has it stand apart from everything else. It's been in early access for like 4 years or something. It just hit 1.0 last week. So I had some Steam credit left over, so I bought that, and it's been good. Don't have anything like overly negative to say about it, but I haven't played it enough to really form a like solid review opinion, as it were. Aside from that, Helldivers has been all consuming.
Of course.
Yeah, it's so much fun. We're getting new weapons next week. The mech, I can't wait to play to get into that mech. And have you ever heard of a game called The Rift Breaker?
It sounds familiar, but I'm not like picturing something.
So it's kind of old at this point, and when I say old, I mean like I don't know. It can't be more than 2 years old. When did this thing come out? I don't know when the actual release date was, but I played it a lot when it was on Game Pass, and I wasn't too into it at first, and then it was one of those games where like the more you play, the more it hooks you, and it got to the point where like I was obsessed with it for like a solid week.
What kind of game is it?
It's part twin stick shooter, part RTS, part base builder, and it's the best part of all three of those.
Oh.
It's a lot of fun, and I think they're either just adding co-op or it was just added. Like it's either coming or it was just added. It was on sale on Steam for some recent event, so I picked up that and the 2 DLCs. And I didn't know this, but they're making a 3rd DLC. And I think it's a lot of fun. Like we are truly in the age of the AA developers right now.
AA and upper indie, you know, a lot of hidden gems to find.
But that's I've been playing the Rift Breaker a lot. Like I definitely played it for over 20 hours on Game Pass, and right now I have 6 on Steam. So I've been putting a decent amount of time into that. It's just a lot of fun. Like it's not complicated. It's not overly simple. Like you still have to think about building your base. You still have to. There's a cool mechanic where like you build a certain structure, and you can go to different worlds to build outposts and pull resources from those planets to use at your main hub at your main base. And it's just a lot of fun. Like it's just a good time. I've been really enjoying that lately.
So it's a few genres mixed together, but it's not, even though it's, you know, bits and pieces from those, it's not oversimplified. It's just a good time.
Yeah, I don't think it's oversimplified at all, but it's also not like dumbed down either. It's good. It's a lot of fun. I think you would like it. Not that you're gonna go out and buy it or anything, but
I'll take a
I
look
think
at
that you
it
would
later.
like it.
Why not?
And then other than that, like I've been, you know, dabbling in COD still again. I mean, they're coming out with the Warhammer crossover. I didn't know it was an event. I thought it was just a skin pack. I have like 3,000 COD points.
They're even doing fucking Godzilla and Kong again. Like everybody's getting their claws in there, which is whatever.
Well, are those skins or is that an event?
I saw it described as an event. I don't see why it wouldn't be, considering like every single, like Walking Dead, The Boys, all these different crossovers, no matter how even small, Dune got events. Yeah, Dune got 2 events. The part 2's coming up, right?
Did you see what they're doing now with the purchasable packs? Like if you buy 3 packs that are all in the same theme, you get like a completion bonus item or something like that. Like it's a mobile pricing model to a console game. And it's crazy. And it's not going to go away because they're making so much fucking money.
Yeah, I always say like monetization of that nature, it's something you can do, but it's like they always go too far with it. It's like,
my big issue with it. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, we're getting all the gaming stuff for free now, which is awesome and amazing, but it's just like the prices on these bundles just keep going up and up, and there's really no reason to.
Yeah. What I was going to say was that I don't necessarily have that big of a problem with the way that this pricing model is. My big issue is that you clearly have the resources and the artists to pump out these skins and whatever else, like whatever other cosmetic item that you want to sell. You clearly have the resources and the ideas and the cross-pollinated like IP to do this, and that's great. Like it should be that way. But they're all available for purchase. Like aside from the mastery grind, which I'm still very leisurely going through. Yeah. I wish that there was a cosmetic mountain to climb. Like perfect example. For all the shit that COD Vanguard caught, their operator cosmetic grind thing that they had was great. That was a really good way that they handled that.
I remember that.
And with all the operators that they have in COD now, maybe I'm alone in this, or at least in the minority. I think that Modern Warfare 3 is the best playing COD that we've had in a while. A lot of people are diehard for Treyarch, and that's fine.
Yeah,
That's its own
the people saying like Black Ops Cold War was the best Call of Duty in like the
I
last
did
10
not
years.
like Cold War
Out of their
at
fucking
all.
like I don't dislike it as much as you do, and I'm talking like Beyond the Zombies as somebody who went through that mastery grind in that game.
I can't believe you did that.
I'm fucking stunned too. But fucking I think it's a fine game. I wish it got the extra year of development it needed, but it is far from the best playing. It's Modern Warfare 3 and Modern Warfare 2019. These are like the two big ones for me where I'm just like, these are the good ones.
I think that 3 is the perfect blend of movement speed between 2019 and Modern Warfare 2.
I think it's just a smidge too fast. My personal opinion.
I'll give you that. Like there are, because I'm on this mastery grind, like I've been living in the small maps playlists, and oh my god, just the fucking Adderall Twitch movement that I run into, and like I'm not a bad player, you know, I'm not a, like I would consider myself above average,
but it's like these kids are spinning so far out of control that it's not even about skill. At a certain point they're just twitching and shooting at shadows at this point, you know.
Yeah, it's exhausting. It truly
like I know that Modern Warfare 19 was a bit slow, but like come on.
I went back and played Modern Warfare 19 like a year or two ago, and I turned the game on. I'm like, is there something wrong with the game? Like it felt so sluggish. I thought there was something wrong.
Yeah, it's I'll always say like Modern Warfare 2019, great game. Its biggest issue will always be its multiplayer map selection, but the speed was definitely slower than what people were used to. Way slower.
100%. And it's really a shame that, you know, we're gonna get another COD in November or October, whatever it's gonna be. But it hurts my soul, the fact that I was so into Call of Duty back when it was in its heyday that you know they've been releasing a new game every year for so long that you just don't even remember what it was like when they had more than a 1 year gap in between a mainline title. And I just wish that it wasn't that way, because I want to enjoy the fucking game for more than a year.
I get that. And just to go to your point again, it's not even like remember when there was a gap. There was never a gap. There was like 1 year with a gap, but it's been yearly releases since Call of Duty 1. Yeah.
Oh
I think they missed 1 year, maybe. One.
I would love to know when that was.
Yeah, I think it was like very early on, but it's been year after year after year. And I think me and you are pretty much on the cusp of being like outpaced by the releases again, where we just fully stop giving a shit.
I am very close to hitting that phase of the COD.
It's sad cycle. Because like I was all in from Modern Warfare 2019 through Warzone 1's original run. I was all in because I thought they really hit something with their shared ecosystem. I have a lot of gripes, and one day we'll talk about that with how Warzone was handled and how those games were handled about halfway into Cold War's lifespan, where like they just started going all in on listening to whoever was screaming the loudest about whatever issue was going on that week, and everybody was just this raucous mob of anger and pointing fingers in the wrong direction. But it was something special, and I think like having that hard reset with the ecosystem going into Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2.0 was such a shock to the system, where it's like it shook me loose from like that, from like being like, because it wasn't at the point where it's like, oh, you know, if you know the Warzone group is kind of like all over the place just because we know people that are like a little too like into it. And it's just it becomes like, you know, be there or be out, and like it's just it's basically like a drug addiction now for some people, and it's like but it always used to be, it's like, oh, I'm playing the latest multiplayer game, it's like, oh, you need it for something in the Warzone, well, here's my history of weapons that's coming with me, and like that was always fun and interesting growth wise, and I don't think it was really necessary to kind of like hit that reset again, especially with how rocky Warzone 2.0 had been up until this point. But that's
the
like a whole
the most I was
convoluted
ever
thing.
well, yeah, the most I was ever into Warzone was back when like the height of the pandemic when it first launched, and how could I not have been?
Yeah.
But like, right when we came out of the pandemic, that's when I really started to slow down. The hype cycle wound up for me again with Modern Warfare 2, and then again with Modern Warfare 3, because like you dangle Task Force 141 in front of me and soap, and like I'm there. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
And this is the first time we've ever had two modern settings back to back. Like that's never happened before. And that was also a huge plus for me. So this is my favorite setting for COD. But it's not like a living game anymore the way that Halo is. And when I say Halo, I'm saying that because it's a first person, like it's an arena based first person shooter, which is probably my favorite type of game that I could play over and over again.
No, I get that.
And it kind of sucks because I'm not into CS:GO, and that's not an arena style shooter, but that game hangs around for like a decade, and then they come out with another one, but it's really like a major update for the first one.
Yeah.
And now that I'm racking my brain about it, like aside from maybe Halo, who really bungled the launch to the point where nobody gives a shit anymore, I don't know of another arena style shooter that has been that could just hang around for that long. Like, yeah, you could make the argument that Destiny Crucible serves that purpose, but it's just so bland. Like, at least with COD, there is so much shit to chase that I still enjoy playing it. But knowing in the back of my mind that everything is just going to be reset next year, it just pisses in my cereal.
It's Call of Duty really needed to have that actual year break. Like we say that it got it. Modern Warfare 3 is a premium priced expansion or whatever, but it really needed that break because I don't know. It's just to go. Is
that break right now?
What?
Are you saying that Modern Warfare 3 is that proverbial break that we needed?
No, I'm saying it needed to be. It just wasn't.
Oh well, yeah.
It really wasn't. Like it really should have been. Like, I mean, I'm happy with the state Modern Warfare 3's in, but it's just, I don't know. Call of Duty is a whole complicated like group of things that will never happen, and like it's like you could spend an hour talking about how they could fix it, and by the time you're done talking about it, a new Call of Duty's come out. But to kind of like finalize
plays a second fiddle to Warzone, so that right there is like, Warzone will live forever. The standard multiplayer modes, like that, those are the ones that are going to be cycled out year over year. So, and that's my big problem because I'm a multiplayer guy.
I don't even really agree with that because multiplayer has been getting pretty consistent updates. The only reason
it has, but it doesn't.
The only reason it feels like Warzone is like getting more attention is because Warzone is persistent year over year. Like, it grows. It doesn't go away and recycle like a Call of Duty game. And that's just, like, even if there was no Warzone, the same exact thing would still be happening to the Call of Duty games. It's just you feel it.
I don't disagree, but the problem still remains. Like, they have the means to keep it around for, like, just to throw out a random number, like 5 years at a time. They have the means to do that. They just don't because it makes so much money every year.
No, I know, but I'm just saying like the Warzone issue and the Call of Duty like yearly release issue is separate because the Call of Duty yearly release thing outlives Warzone by like a decade. So it's
okay, like, right. No, I don't. Yes, but the problems are still exist independent of each other, and
no, yeah, there's two issues, but I'm just saying like. I don't know. I'll agree to disagree with you on this one just because I think that the multiplayer experience, like these Call of Duties now are getting arguably better multiplayer support than like Modern Warfare 2019 did. I'm
100% with you.
Yeah, so that's been trending upward. That's why I kind of Go ahead. Right,
but like it's getting that TLC within the calendar year of that Call of Duty. But once COD 2024 rolls around, they're gonna pretty much forget about Modern Warfare 3.
Of course, absolutely,
right.
Yeah.
That's my issue. Like at least if I decided to go back and play, if I decided to go back and play Halo Infinite, who the fuck knows when they're coming out with another Halo game? At least all the shit that I earned is still kind of relevant for a while. Like, if I unlock what the hell is it called? It's not Interstellar, was the one before Orion, right? That's the most current one. Whatever the current mastery count is.
I think it's Orion. Or was that the last one?
I don't even remember. I still like Damascus the best personally.
Yeah, I do have a certain affinity for the star movement camos, but yeah, I mean I agree with you on the thing. You made it sound like it was purely a Warzone issue, but obviously it isn't.
No, I know it's not. It's a Call of Duty issue. It's the fact that they can get $70 for a base game every single year, and it still sells like hotcakes because the game's demographic is not people who eat, sleep, and breathe video games. If it was, then I don't think we'd be in this situation.
Yeah, it's tough. Hopefully, in this sea of games, and as we enter like a kind of a period of time where things are changing, more people are stepping up. Hopefully, there's some kind of AA or even a new competitor in the space where we see somebody else step into that. Because I mean, realistically, it's like shooters in general, you only really have major leftover names, like you mentioned, the Call of Duties, the Halos, Battlefield's kind of on its back foot. You have games like Team Fortress 2 and Counter-Strike that have been around for however many years. Yeah, but it's like like if you are a fan of either of those games, you're just good because they haven't gone anywhere.
Yeah. And they probably never will. Like, they might make a Team Fortress 3 eventually, but that game came out, 12, 15 years ago.
They updated Half-Life Deathmatch like a year ago. Like Half-Life as like its entirety got like some massive update, and it's like if you have higher resolution monitors, the HUD's better now, things are smoother. We fixed a bunch of bugs that have been lingering for like 2 decades. And that's interesting to me because I actually like Half-Life Deathmatch a lot. I don't play it that often, and it's like one of my earliest views into competitive shooters. One of my uncles had it, and I remember watching them play it and being fascinated by it. But yeah, but I get what you're saying with the Call of Duty thing, and I understand it's tough because like nobody's really competing, and who would want to punch up to Call of Duty,
right?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I think you can do it, but you can't approach it with you're going to go toe to toe on their arena. It's like you need to do your own thing.
Well, have you seen the new Delta Force gameplay trailers that came out like this past week?
I have not. No.
It literally looks like right down the middle of Battlefield and Call of Duty. Between the animations, the gameplay, the map design, it looks like a seamless and I'm just saying it matter of factly. I'm not saying this in a positive or a negative way. It looks so like a seamless hybrid between those two games. And when you watch the trailers, there are moments where like it seems like there's like hero abilities almost, because there's these animations that there's no reason for them to exist other than special character abilities. Gotcha. But then you look at the gunplay and it's very COD. Then you look at the map design and the fact that you can pilot these big vehicles like helicopters or tanks, and it's very Battlefield. So I don't know how that's going to turn out, but I mean, you're aware that Delta Force was this big like legacy title back in the day, right? Like this tactical shooter.
Yeah, I'm aware of the name. I haven't kept up with any modern like takes on that. I just haven't been looking.
So that's coming out, but there are so few things that even have a chance to go toe to toe with COD. I mean, like you have something like Helldivers that comes out and it's just good fun, and yeah.
No, I was gonna say I was actually gonna bring up Helldivers because it's doing its own thing in the space, but when you were talking to me, and everybody's been trying to get me to try the game or download it, or just flat out buy it. You,
Honestly,
Joe,
that's
Luke,
the biggest
everybody.
fucking sin of this whole thing is that you have not been able to play with us.
I'm sure I'll try it or try to figure out a situation soon enough. But the point I'm getting at, the thing you guys did not, you guys just needed to say one thing. Oh, it kind of plays like Metal Gear Solid 5. Because like that's
So
like,
I wouldn't have been able to make that comparison.
See, it's because Metal Gear Solid 5 has arguably the best gameplay in the Metal Gear Solid series, and it's the only, because I said this the last time we recorded, where I said Gears is still my like king of third person shooters. The only game that has satisfied me at that level of like a third person shooter experience, they're very different in how they handle, obviously.
You're gonna say the Division?
No, it's Metal Gear Solid 5.
Oh,
like
okay.
the movement, how aiming works, crouch and prone and diving. And Helldivers takes a lot of that. And what I'm getting at is if Helldivers can add like this very intuitive like movement system that took
there's a lot of nuance to it that you don't really notice at first, and then the more you play, the more you notice.
When I was editing footage for you for the Helldivers video, when I was looking through the trailers, I wouldn't have known that until somebody pointed it out and said like, "Hey, look what you can do." And what this is all going to is, if a game like Helldivers, where the focus it's like a survival, it's like an endurance, a war of attrition with these NPCs, why can't a developer make a similar system with those shooting mechanics just for like a PvP or a PvPvE kind of situation?
We do it.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, it's something, it's a untapped market, and like these developers come out of nowhere and they go and they do it for this. It's why can't it be done? Like you said it before, where you said like, oh, nobody wants to go toe to toe with something like Call of Duty. It's like, you don't have to. Just make a game like that in a different vein. There are so many gaps with all the different.
Do you remember the game that we tried to play? This was like 10 years ago or something. I don't even remember how long ago it was. It's called God Mode.
Oh, it sounds familiar.
It's a PvE co-op horde like arcade shooter, third person. It's not cover based, but it's it looked really cool, like as far as what they seem to have been promising, but I don't think they delivered on. It wasn't as fleshed out as it needed to be to stick around.
Gotcha.
And I'll send you a video of it, but I feel like a game like that there's a place for it if it's done correctly. Even like the Division, to a point, setting aside the live service aspect to it, even though Helldivers is a live service game.
It was a fine shooter.
Yeah, like it's gonna sound very dated of me, but the older I get, the less appetite I have for a PvP style game.
I've been feeling that a lot, and like I get that. When I say feeling that a lot, I mean not from me, but it's like it's a common theme I'm hearing from people like in our age and even a little younger. And I get that, and I think it's just I think it's an industry-wide issue of what multiplayer games offer shrinking, as their core gameplay is very much fixated on that more like, snappy, like we just got to get these kids to like be jumping around and everything like that. I think
right, because everyone chases the metrics.
Yeah, it's I think basically what I'm getting at with what I just said is that between the offerings just not being up to snuff, players in our age range having been through a lot of games knowing better, like interest is just going to drop off for us, like, and the target is going to be for like the kids and whatnot, the ones that like to jump around in Call of Duty, or they play Fortnite and they're switching between weapons and building shit all over. And it's like, if you or me wanted to, we could do that, but like, what's the payoff? Like just a headache. Yeah. Like it's like there are experiences out there that are better or more.
I would rather just hang out with my friends online and have a couple really good laughs, and with like a solid game that plays well, doesn't fucking crash all the time, and we just have a good time for like 3-4 hours, than grind my ass off for the same amount of time, come out with my cortisol levels higher than they were before for like a camo on a gun. And while there's still a part of me that likes to do that, just like I said, the older I get, the less appetite I have for it. And when a game like Helldivers comes out, that's like all I want to fucking do.
The games are not necessarily evolving with our tastes. Like there's a certain expectation that I feel hasn't been met. And what I was getting at way back before this tangent kicked off is there are a lot of gaps out there that could be filled by indies, AA's, AAA's of different styles of play, different offerings, different perspectives, different gameplay types. And as long as those gaps remain unfilled, Call of Duty is going to remain dominant in that field. And
right.
And I'm like I said, I'm not saying somebody's got to come in and punch up, because that's just an unstoppable battle. But like, Call of Duty could potentially lose dominance by a lot of innovative, strong, small offerings. Death by 1,000 cuts, however you want to call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even saying Call of Duty needs to die. I would, some would say, and I would probably agree that at a certain point you got to put it out of its misery. But I'd much rather see this legacy brand rise to meet a challenge in a hypothetical years off from now, when the industry is filled with new experiences and it's forced to evolve. I'd much rather see it, succeed and survive. But we'll see what happens.
Actually, something that I agree with everything that you just said. Something that I just thought of was that a game that I think has the potential to do something in that vein that its predecessor kind of did is Killing Floor. Killing Floor 3, whatever that is going to end up being, because Killing Floor 2 still gets updates even now.
I will say
it still has an active community.
Yeah, on the topic of Killing Floor, I will say Killing Floor 2, what I've heard is like the monetization kind of spiraled out of control at a certain
awful.
point.
It's like, I don't know who's in charge of that, but it is bad.
Yeah,
and it's really hard to understand, which makes it worse.
Yeah, like I remember the last couple times we played, it was kind of creeping into that. Like it wasn't there yet, but it was kind of creeping up, and already I was looking at the menus going, what are they trying to sell me on here?
It's weird. It's just,
but
it's
from
nuts.
a gameplay perspective, it's fun. It had a lot of
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. But I guess to kind of just put a pin and kind of into this whole Call of Duty conversation that we kind of spiraled into, right? It used to be Call of Duty was like standing tall in like a sea of other shooters trying to be it. Yeah. And it reigned supreme, because that's just how it is. Like Medal of Honor famously came out of the woodwork and died trying to just go toe to toe with Call of Duty, just wiped itself out. But like now it's just Call of Duty standing there and there's no sea. It's just like a dry ocean bed that could be filled with new experiences from people, taking samples of things that aren't tried anymore. And what that means for us would be, things to try that isn't just like, I guess I'll go and I'll play Call of Duty. Because as fun as Modern Warfare 3 is, I have a feeling Call of Duty is just going to start. It's I enjoy Modern Warfare 3. If we sat down and played it, I play with a couple other buddies of mine. We have a lot of fun. I have a feeling like we're teetering at that point again where Call of Duty is going to start, it's just going to hit a wall again, and it's going to be all hands on deck to like preserve Warzone, but whatever Call of Duty game comes after, it's just going to be subpar, or even worse, it's going to be built around what the community wants, and it's just not going to be a good time. That's like when we go back into like Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4, and all those games, and it's just going to be a mess again. But that's where we're at with that.
I think the one thing that could really save COD, as far as in respect to what we were talking about in COD as a franchise overall, is if they just brought COD All-Stars, But then again, you have to make the argument of like, who would play the newer games?
I mean, we theoretically had that. We almost had that with a Warzone.
Wait, what?
We talked about this briefly when Cold War was doing its integration, and it was still up in the air, and you brought up the COD War All Stars kind of thing, and I said like the closest it'll probably be for a while, just because it was no longer reeling anymore, because Modern Warfare 2019 saved it. It wasn't desperate anymore. Is Warzone, which is a situation where it's like you play the game, you play Warzone. A new game comes out, Warzone stays the same, but now there's new content that you're taking from like that building ecosystem that they junked when Modern Warfare 2 came out. That ecosystem was the closest to a realistic COD All Stars that you're ever gonna get, just because it would. The situation for them to try that would be so astronomical and like desperate, and you would need all the right people in the right place.
Have to be on death's door, honestly.
Yeah, and it's the reason I say it's even further outside the realm of possibility is because they're technically already doing that with like Call of Duty Mobile, where they just give a little bit of everything. The fact that they are doing it on the smaller scale means they said like, oh, we know this concept and this is what we want to do with this concept. So to get them to not only do that, to break that away from the plan that they already have that's succeeding in their eyes and moving it to like a bigger budget thing, it's just not in the cards. It's just not going to happen. So
God.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything I love turns to shit.
Yeah, but luckily you realized this about Call of Duty for a while. You've broken free from Destiny, even though you seem to have played it recently for whatever reasons. So I'll tell you exactly what I told you. I'll tell you exactly what I told you 2 weeks ago, or something along these lines. Is there are so many great experiences you have not tried and things you are finding, and there's plenty to play. You just got to look and hunker down while the industry goes through what it's going through right now.
I've got plenty on my plate to keep me busy. Last Epoch is a fucking well of content that I have to get to. I need to play through the 2 DLCs that I got with the Riftbreaker set that I just bought. And they're making a 3rd expansion, actually. I didn't know this until after I got it. So I'm excited about that. Darktide is still a top contender for me. Like that. If Vermintide 2 is anything to go by, they're going to be supporting Darktide for quite a long time. And they, after they fix the class system, it's a matter of time before they add new shit. So that's great. We still have to play Remnant 2 because they just added crossplay, and you can get it on Game Pass, and it's a really good time. We should set aside some time, like the next week or two, to play that. It's a lot of fun.
Yes, very much so.
Beyond that, I mean, that's kind of what I've been playing through. I know I don't even know how long we were just talking about that.
Well, I mean, to be honest, we got through what we've been playing in like the first 15, and then we rambled about Call of Duty, which is, I guess, it's fitting in a way.
I bought and started playing through Control again, but now that Helldivers came out, that's kind of really took a backseat. And Last Epoch and Riftbreaker, so yeah, I've got my hands full.
All right.
Yeah. So what else is going on in the realm of games this week?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's any news you had on your plate, because the one I want to talk about is a doozy, and it's pretty. Is it relevant.
The layoffs or more layoffs?
No, I mean the layoffs. That's just going to keep happening. But
yeah,
I said at the beginning that we chose an interesting time to come back, right? And I had kind of like put in the ether, like I brought up all the nonsense about outsourcing and consulting work, and it has blown up in the last 2 weeks, like to the point where I joked, I'm like, wasn't it funny, we kind of talked about Gamergate in our old podcast, and that was such a silly thing, and now people are talking about Gamergate 2.
Oh my god,
that's how big this consultation thing came up. Because have you paid attention to any of this?
I don't think so.
Okay. So 2 weeks ago, I told you about how there's a lot of outsourcing and consulting, and like you kind of figured for some things, but you didn't know that like it had bled into writing, correct? Like that kind of surprised you. So very recently, somebody on Steam made a curator page. You're familiar with that, right? What a curator page is.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, where it's just like no, not the specific. No. So curator page is obviously like it's a list of games that are either recommended or don't recommend. Not a lot of people use the feature, but there's a lot of groups out there. Guy puts out there, and it's called Sweet Baby Inc. detected. Now, Sweet Baby Inc. is one of those consultation companies that I've told you about, where it's like all these different companies like outsource to them. And, you know, people are kind of getting sick and tired. You know, we kind of talked about how it's like everything kind of sounds like a shitty Marvel movie where there's unnecessary ham-fisted messaging in there and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
So this one guy makes a group. It's a Brazilian guy, South American, somewhere down there. And it's like, it reaches like, you know, a couple thousand people, right? One of the guys working for the company hops on Twitter and starts demanding that people go to Steam and start mass reporting this guy because it's horrible and it's bigoted and it's racist, and how could they possibly say avoid these games, right? This immediately blows up in his face. The group starts growing by tens of thousands because everybody's fed up with all this outsourcing work, right? So that's what happens in like the first day is like they start taking shots at each other. Then all of a sudden out of the woodwork, people start coming out and they're just like, you know, I worked for one of these consulting companies and, you know, everybody thinks we're just woke, but all we do is consulting work. And then immediately people start digging into the history. The founder of this group is on record, you know, saying some pretty racist stuff about, you know, white people. But more importantly, that like the smoking gun was that at a GDC however many years ago, she's describing her job and she's like, my job is basically to say like, oh, you need this and this in your game, and it's my job to go in there and scare the shit out of these people until they change their games. That's what she said. If not verbatim, pretty fucking close to verbatim. So now people are just like, you're full of crap. We don't want to anywhere near this. The group keeps building up. I think right now it's up to like 200,000 people are following this group because they want nothing to do with this. And the whole time, the people that work for this firm are coming out and they're doing the whole like the persnickety, like, oh, you know, I can't believe all these awful people are doing harassment campaigns. It's just a consulting firm, you know, like that whole shtick, you know, that pompous, like, you know, fucking behind the desk all day. You know how it is. And so now, while that's going on, people are looking at like the different ties, and it turns out the people that founded or were behind or friends with the people of this company are people that were involved in the original Gamergate. So now it's like it never went away. And there's a bunch of these companies. You know, we're talking about Sweet Baby Inc. There's another one called what is it called? It's like Dragon Baby and like Weird Ghost, and like all these people know each other and they're related to the same as in like the same ties, the same media groups from the beginning. And there's like 20, and the list just keeps going of all these different groups that are just getting into these games with the same bullshit I was talking about last time, vilifying these people. The people being us, by the way, saying like basically trying to like uproot gaming and make it into something it's not. Like it started with Gamergate is now going on with these consultant companies, and it's already started where all the articles from the you know the usual rags, I don't want to give them any attention, are coming out and doing like, oh, why you're so wrong about Sweet Baby Inc., why you're so wrong about this, consulting is an industry standard and you guys shouldn't be worried about it. And it's just it's kicking off in a big way because now you have
some fucking gaslighting right there.
You have it's major gaslighting, and now you have developers that have been in the industry for like decades. You know, the ones that don't drink the Kool-Aid are basically going, yeah, this has been going on for a while, and they're lying directly to your face because they hate you. And it's true, because basically all of these groups, it's like, why the fuck are they there in the first place, right? It's like they're just like, oh, it's just a consulting firm. My response is, why do you need a consulting firm? Just you are a team of people making a video game. You shouldn't be going to these consulting companies to advertise better or to diversify or all this shit. Drives me up a wall. So that's basically what's been going on. I just found it humorous that like in the 2 weeks since we've come back, made all these jokes and filled you in on this stuff, that it's kind of coming to a head and it's blowing up again. It's like, come on. I thought, I thought we were going to be able to just coast and let things like slow. I didn't realize it was going to be a fucking another war that we're going to be, privy to. But yeah, so that's what's going on now, is a lot of these consulting firms are about to get like some spotlight on them. You're going to hear a lot of gaslighting stories and a lot of, harassment campaign stories in like the coming months as they try to like.
That article that you posted, what was it, yesterday? Today's Warner Brothers aims to increase focus on free-to-play and live service games because disappointments like Suicide Squad make the big budget business very volatile.
Can you fucking believe the audacity of Warner Brothers? They have this massive production, you know, where that basically killed Rocksteady. Like, I'm not even saying like it's literally like at death's door. That's not even
hyperbole, though. It's
like they shed so much talent during the development of this game, and they outsourced to these terrible people, which made the game worse. And it's like the game was originally supposed to have like loot boxes and live service and all this shit. And it leaked, and they course corrected and made it closer to a single player game, even though there's still loot and unnecessary stuff in there. And after all of this, the executives at the top, their takeaway is single player experiences aren't viable. What are you talking about? You didn't even make one. You have this Frankenstein's monster of like ideas that you tried to force in and that peeled off because it just didn't function, and you heard like early reports from the leaks. I talked a lot about these consulting companies. I talked a lot about like nefarious actors. Corporate stuff at the top is still just as terrible as it used to be. Yeah. It's like I don't want to come at you and say like, oh, it's if we just get rid of these consulting groups, like everything will be fine. No. There's still all these terrible issues still happening. It's amazing to me that like in spite of everything, in spite of all these terrible people coming in to just subvert gaming and make it into something it's not, and make it terrible and talk down to you, there is still the bedrock foundation of terrible corporate decisions at the top still making it's batshit to me that's your takeaway with Suicide Squad. Is not that, you know, the story was shit, the gameplay wasn't all that great, the looting was unnecessary, you tried to make it live service from the get-go. It's that it had single player elements, and that's why it was bad. absolutely insane that was their takeaway. But yeah, but big budget. I don't know. Yeah,
I don't know how like you get from this where we are now to another golden era. You know, like what exactly has to fall, like crumble in on itself? Is it the management apparatus that is going to do everything in its power to stay in power, or is it people that are just going to say like that's enough and just start voting with their wallets? I don't know how you get from point A to point B.
The same way where I kind of clarified that it's not just one issue, right? Where I said like, oh, you know, I said consulting firms, and I also said corporate overreach. There's a ton of other issues. My big harping on was like, you know, there's also talent bleed in the industry. There's other means of outsourcing. There's diversity hiring, all this kind of stuff. The same way that all of these things roll together into just like a terrible beaten industry, the solutions need to be, you know, just as like it's, you know, people losing sales, you know, in the same way like, you know, that you have like this guy doing like a count where he talks about like, oh, this game has these ties to these people, right? And you have 200,000 people following it. Like that's like, oh, good, that's one step in the right direction. And then you would have, you know, like industry-wide layoffs. Some people say that's bad. I say that's good because you're now, you know, big companies don't have the fuck around and just do whatever, you know, team size or budgets anymore. So it's like now they're less willing to just throw money at bad ideas on top of like people being more aware that there are bad actors out there trying to destroy what you love. And then at the same time,
what, you know, how do you know a bad idea when you see it? Because, you know, you take a live service, for example, Helldivers is a live service game. Clearly, that was a great fucking idea.
Well, so basically that goes to the whole, like, you know, AAA, you can't scare AAA because they won't try anything. Well, not everything needs to be AAA. One of the interesting things about all these layoffs is you have a lot of companies basically like retaining their ground. They say like, oh, you know, whoa, you're the conglomerate group that owns us is like selling things off and closing studios. We're gonna go back to doing our own thing, you know. So like you have companies breaking off of that.
you hear about all these veteran devs that helped create Battlefield or Halo or whatever have you, and they go and make their own studio with like a handful of experienced devs, and then they're gonna take Remnant for example. Gunfire Games, they made the original Darksiders, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
I'll take your word for it.
And they turn around and they make Remnant 1, which was like unanimously loved by everybody who played it. And then Remnant 2 is more of that and it does a better job in everything that it set out to do in every way. And I don't think they're let's find out. Gunfire Games employee count. There we go. 82 employees. Yeah. Not even 100 employees with an average annual revenue of $2 million, and they're based out of Austin, Texas. Interesting. That is honestly less than I thought. It's a lot less than I thought, and they put out a great game. That seems like a good annual revenue. I don't know the business end of it, but
so I mean, just to kind of as far as like teams and sizes and things like that. I mean, 5 people made Doom. I think it's 5 people total made Doom. So it's like I know,
you're talking about a much more simple piece of software than what we have now. Well, I guess relatively speaking, it's not.
Yeah, it's a relative thing. I mean, games were arguably harder to make back then, despite their simplicity, to the point where
3 people made BattleBit.
No, what I'm getting at is basically like, I mean, there's one-man studios that people that work on their own things for like 2 to 3 years and put out a game. It's as intimidating as it can be, it still can be done by small teams. Like back then it wasn't as easy as it was now, and they didn't have like the assets to just go pick and choose from. Like I think the only thing that was easy to get back then was like sounds. Like you could go out and you could buy like a sound effects CD, and that's how a lot of them did. Like you get sound banks in libraries, but like every other thing, it was just hard work. So it's entirely possible for these small teams to flourish. And it's going back all the way back to your question, what fixes this is multiple things. It's like a more aware consumer, groups popping up that kind of like track the industry and what's going on with it, rise AA studios and smaller independent teams, industry-wide layoffs. As much as the economy kind of sucks right now, it's good for people who want a cleanse of the industry, because that leads to the layoffs and less flippant spending from the big names.
Just for the sake of comparison, I just googled what the Sledgehammer Games employee count was. How many employees do you think they have?
Sledgehammer alone, or everybody working at Call of Duty?
Sledgehammer.
I would say around 500.
You were basically right on the money. It's 450.
Yeah, it's a lot of these companies, and listen, we say Sledgehammer Games, it's like, it's 450 people. That doesn't account for the people that are attached to the Call of Duty brand for things like Warzone. It doesn't account for the people that they outsource to. It doesn't account for all the different, like, it would not surprise me if over 1,200 hands touched Modern Warfare 3 between
I believe
the
it.
Start of development
it's
and
all the support studios. It's all the main. Every studio that Activision had was working on COD, is working on COD.
So it's probably even higher than that.
I think as far as like a publishing, no, not publishing. As far as like development goes, I think COD is one of the, like, I don't know, 3 games that they develop, or maybe even less.
Something like that, because at this point, like a lot of the, like they called it, getting sent to the Call of Duty mines, a lot of the companies that Activision owned were basically sent to work on Call of Duty, and since then have either been dissolved or have broken free. Like for example, the guys that did the Spyro and Crash remasters, Toys for Bob, they're doing their own thing now. They're split from Activision because they're dissolved or whatever. I forget the exact scenario, but basically they're doing their own thing now. But basically, like I said, it's multiple small things that build up to it, because
1,000 cuts.
yeah, because exactly, basically what I said for Call of Duty is the same thing here, because it's tricky, because it naturally goes against what you're really supposed to do. Because I had this conversation with somebody the other day when it comes to the creative process for art and how people do escapism. The two separate things, not all together. You should never have to worry about the intent of art mediums, be it movies or TV shows or even a fucking painting, but video games in this context is like, you shouldn't have to look at it and say, I've been burned pretty bad the last decade. I'm really hoping that the person that made this game doesn't hate me and the industry that they're working in, because there's a lot of people out there like that. You should never have to look at the byproduct of art and the creative process, or something that you're just buying to relax and like have fun with. Escapism has been under attack for a long time. Gaming in particular has been like the main focus for a lot of this, but like it extends to comics and movies and TV shows, you obviously know. But escapism has been under attack, and it sucks, because there are people that don't necessarily like. I would say it's like, I'm pretty tuned into it. You're like a step removed from me, but like you can pay attention and realize what's going on. I feel absolutely terrible when people are woken up to the bullshit that goes on in the background, because I hate seeing somebody excited for somebody who works their ass off like at a 9 to 5, doing overtime all the time, and they come home and they buy a game from like a series that they knew, and they boot it up. It's half the game it should be. It's made by people that fucking hate him, and it's just a disappointing buggy mess. That unironically breaks my fucking heart, because it subverts the expectation of somebody who just wants to have some fucking fun in their life. It shows that the process, be it from corporate overreach or nefarious actors, was just corrupted at a certain point, and it pisses me off to no end that's going on. And what I'm getting at with this is that you should never need to worry about that, and because you have to, it's such an unnatural process to say, like, it's like going to the convenience store and saying, man, I could go for a candy bar, and like you worry about there being ejaculate in every candy bar in the fucking store. Like, that's not a natural thing to worry about, but that's essentially what we have to worry about with the gaming industry. It's like, oh, I really want this candy bar that's sitting here, but like I need to check it for like horse semen and razor blades. Like, what the fuck? Like, you shouldn't have to do that. And it breaks my heart when people realize that they have to do that, and like everybody needs to be on board one way or the other before this industry really shapes up, because there are tons of people out to keep it ruined and either use it for their own personal messaging, or they just hate you and hate me and hate everybody and want the gaming industry to just burn or be like as sanitized as possible. And unfortunately, I think that's going to be a running theme on some of our podcast episodes, because we're apparently just getting into the thick of it now, and it would be I don't. Unfortunately, it's not like the first time around where we could just ignore it, because like the games were still getting made. Like we're a decade into this kind of subversive process. Yeah. So I think the running theme here is like we're gonna be like, oh, I played this game from like the mid 2000s. Oh, I just played a game like this. Oh, by the way, did you hear about how they're ruining everything this week? Did you hear the latest news from the front lines?
God. On that note, do you have any good news to share before we close this thing out?
I don't think a lot of the things they tried last time to like kind of get away with this is going to work quite the same way, because for the longest time, as long as we've been talking about people of hate video game, and I'm using multiple air quotes here, journalists. So it's like they were always kind of a joke, but now it's like everybody kind of hates them, even other journalists. So I think their integrity is in the shitter. I think a lot of people have kind of noticed how media in general has been trending a certain way, where it's like everything sucks or has somebody behind it pulling the strings or censoring it or changing it or swapping things out. So I think a lot of the dirty tricks that they were polling last time aren't necessarily going to work, and I do think we're going to see some turnaround. A lot of the positives I mentioned 2 weeks ago still remain. I do think we're going to see the rise of double A's and certain indies. I think they're already out there to a certain extent. It's just
I think that's happening already.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of, as faith in AAA falters and as AAA kind of like is shaky and wobbly because of all the layoffs, I think we're going to have experiences that are out there already rise to the occasion, and I think we're going to have teams make new experiences that rise to the occasion. And I think even if this whole thing fails, and I don't think it will, I think we are trending not just in video games but culturally. I think we're going to be reaching a turning point in the next couple of years. We're going to see some.
Always got to love your optimism.
Changes. Listen.
It's always been
I'm not going to get sappy about it because listen, I'm not going to get sappy. That
was not sarcasm. I'm being completely genuine.
We've been through the ringer, and there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna get sappy and talk about the things going on in the world, but in our little pocket of it with the gaming stuff, I think one way or another, it's either things turn around, or we're at the very least there's gonna be while you have all the people at the top, the ones that say they want to legitimize games as an art form, the people ruining everything from the corporates to the consultants, and the subversive people in between. There's going to be a greater ring of enthusiasts and good experiences around it at the barest of minimums, So
yeah,
what does they say? Life finds a way. I've never seen that movie. Am I quoting it right?
Life does in fact find a way.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
Well, all right, cool. Gotta love that optimism. Well, that's about everything, I guess. This is more of a friendly conversation, I think, overall, than a news podcast. But that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, we weren't even targeting news necessarily. It's just whatever's going on. If you want news, go watch the fucking news hole. And that's
all right, cool. Well, that's it. See you in 2 weeks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.